Welcome back to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great evening, good Sunday night. Have Sean Murphy with me. Now, I've had you on my YouTube channel before, but as before I started the podcast, I think the last time I had you on, Jeff was on, you were
Yep.
on, and Leo was on, and it turned into just like a 3-hour just conversation.
Yep.
I think me and Jeff were playing cup pong on our phones because you and Leo hit it off and I loved it. But me and Jeff were just like, yeah, man. Like he's like sent me like a cup pong text. He's like, bro, like, want to play? I was like, hey, why not? But
I can really have a tendency to not shut the up sometimes, so that does sound about right. But Anthony, it's good to see you, man. Thank you so much for having me. I think the last time I was on, I think it was around when you were starting to make content again on the channel. So for real, dude, it's been awesome to see what you've been able to do over the last couple of years and just, how much work you've been putting in, as someone who also does it and knows how hard it is and, how real the grind is. I, admire it a ton. And yeah, man, always glad to be talking hoops with you. It's a pleasure to see you, man, for real.
yeah, like it's so crazy that I haven't had you on because it's like I try to get a guest on every week because no one wants to listen to my dumbass ramble for 30 minutes or an hour. I was just like, I'd rather have someone else come on because they're gonna have different opinions than I am because I'm just bat crazy sometimes. I don't know what it is. Yeah, sometimes I go like really hyperbolic and just have like really crazy takes.
We're Detroit sports fans. I think that honestly has a lot to do with it. I mean, we're masochists in certain ways, but it's a life it's a life that chose us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I won't unfollow you guys like some accounts do, but hey man, that's a whole nother topic for a different day. And now someone said, are you gonna unfollow me on Twitter? No, I'm not gonna unfollow you guys on Twitter. You guys are watching on Twitter and you scroll on just Detroit sports. That's kind of the topic of the day. It's getting unfollowed, which kind of weird, but hey man. New social media team, I guess, has to come in and just make a clean slate.
Yeah, I almost kind of wonder, just like the practice of it to begin with. Obviously, I empathize, like it does suck to like look like, hey, what the heck? Why aren't they following me anymore? But it's not like I want to be a Debbie Downer either. It's not like I want to be a jerk, but like I also wonder how much they're actually looking at people's posts to begin with. So,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of from the perspective of the social media manager, and it's probably just cleaning up their timeline a little bit. But nonetheless, it's definitely, on the surface, I could definitely understand fans going, oh, they're unfollowing a ton of fans on Twitter after the season I don't think it's that deep, but I understand where people are coming from.
I mean, if you look before they did like the cleaning up, they were almost following like 20,000 people, which sometimes like I'll follow someone that like supports me, but sometimes they like stuff that I don't want my other followers seeing on the timeline. So I could only imagine what some fans that also like the Pistons and also like other stuff on their timeline. I've had to unfollow some people sometimes. I was like, yo, like, you can do that on your own time, but I don't want that on my time.
It's crazy. Like there's fans that like I've talked to, or like that I'll like have conversations with on Twitter. It's like, man, this guy knows hoops. I'll give him a follow. And then they'll just post straight up pornography onto their accounts. And I'm like, dude, this is not what I came here for.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's this one guy that literally comments, like he's always negative towards me. And then like I got curious one time. I was like, hey, I'll bite. And
that was my burner. I'm sorry.
It's nothing but it's nothing but porn. I was like, dude, what the fuck?
Oh, that was definitely not me then. You gotta take that.
No, it's so I don't know. I guess I upset some people sometimes, but hey, man, I got to be a little bit more careful of how I word things.
It's hard to do a podcast without ruffling some feathers once in a while.
Yeah, I had some guy tell me to delete my account. Like I went on Jeff's new show, shout out, Crunch Time, and he literally went on and said, worst basketball mind ever, delete your account, you're horrible. And like he went over to my YouTube channel and subscribed. So I was like, I don't know what I said. I don't know what I said.
This guy sucks. I have to shoot him a subscribe.
He still subscribed too.
Incredible.
And he still comments. I got all my stuff. I was like, bro, like, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for boosting my numbers, fam. I appreciate it.
Oh my god. But we do have some stuff to get into. I know we could probably just ramble for hours about
Oh
stupid
yeah.
shit.
Uh-huh.
So this past week, I was scrolling on the timeline looking for content, and I see Jim Costa. You probably know where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah. Yep. I know
The
exactly where you're going.
the Olympics just ended.
Yep.
And his exact quote, hot take or not so much hot take, is if Cade Cunningham isn't on the 2028 Olympic team, he's a bust. So I want to know what your stance on Jim Costa's opinion. Obviously, he's in the city, morning show for 97 won the ticket. I think all of us have listened to the ticket at least one time in our life. What is your opinion on Jim's comments about Cade not making the Olympic team in 2028?
So let me preface my comments with I am a big Jim Costa fan as a person and his content. He actually, before coming on 97.1, he was actually in Grand Rapids on a show called Big Drew and Jim. And I actually listened to him quite a bit over here on my home side of the state. So I have a lot of respect and admiration for his hustle, his journey. And I think especially compared to certain other people that work on that network, I think he actually knows quite a bit about basketball. Having said that, I understand the premise of Jim's take, but I also think that is the completely wrong parameters to be looking at whether or not Cade Cunningham is a bust, specifically when you consider, first of all, just how deep the United States roster is compared to every other team in the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, NBA talent is spreading, more and more between each country, but even in 2028, even when there won't be LeBron, Kevin Durant, or Steph Curry, there's going to be Cooper Flagg is very much going to be in that conversation. You're going to have, Tyrese Halliburton. You're still going to have Jason Tatum. You're going to have Jaylen Brown. Like there's not a lot of names really going anywhere. I would expect, especially, with what we think of Cade's potential, that he has more than every ability to be in that position. I mean, we've seen that he's impressed, on the USA select team before. So we know that he's in the system. We know that there are fans of Cade in the building. But I mean, look, I think honestly, the questions about Cade's ability and his acumen as a basketball player, to me, have virtually been put to rest from what he went through this last year and what he was able to produce in comparison. I mean, you look at he had the spacing equivalent of a stray jacket when it comes to shooting around him. And he still managed, to score 25 plus points, 5 plus rebounds, and 5 plus assists. One of the only players in the league to do it other than LeBron James and Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic, I believe is the list. So pretty good company to be on. But what I would say is if by 2028, if we don't definitively look at Cade Cunningham as an all-star, then I think you could start looking at, was it the right pick? Especially if you see someone like an Evan Mobley or a Jalen Green start to ascend behind him. However, as of today, there has just simply not been a player from that class. If you look, at statistics, at film, at just the entire package, that is a better player right now than Cade Cunningham. All due respect to Evan Mobley's and Scotty Barnes, they're not Cade. If you put Cade on that Cleveland team, I would wager he would do pretty darn well too. But I think having said all that, again, I think that the premise of what Jim is saying is fair. You want to be able to view him as one of those elite, US players in the next few years, especially when you draft a guy at number 1 in the skill set that he has. When you're talking about whether or not a guy's the bust, you're not bringing up, oh, well, did he make Team USA? No, because that's just not how we think about it, right?
Yeah. I think when I was reading that, I was like, okay, we just had the Olympics. They were really fun to watch. The Jason Tatum thing was the Jason Tatum thing. It was funny. I think Cade would probably make the Olympic team, just given on. I know the select team is not this. It's not something where I think you look at the national team and you look at the select team. It's kind of they're like on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
But from what we heard, like last summer or 2 summers ago, whenever it was, Cade was the best player on the court.
Mm-hmm.
So that the way I'm looking at it is when I was watching, the film with the select team, Cade and Jalen Duren look great. To your point, this year, he averaged 22 and 7.5 assists with Killian Hayes and Isaiah Livers and, that whole mess last season. 7.5 assists on that. That's pretty good if you ask me.
Well, and what people forget too is last summer, even though he was on the Team USA select team, a roster spot was there if he wanted it. Like he was offered a roster spot for that team last summer. He said no because he wanted to focus on, getting in the gym and, getting healthy and right for the season, which I think was probably the right call in the long run. But nonetheless, the roster spot was there if he wanted it for the World Cup team. So, when the USA select team, it's not necessarily indicative of who's going to make that team in the future, but that does say these are the guys that Team USA has their eyes on. These are the guys that they respect, and especially those younger players, they are certainly at the top of the list of guys, that they would expect to be, to be representing them in some fashion, whether it's, World Cup or Olympic. He's definitely going to be on one of those teams in the next 4 years, without a doubt, perhaps both.
Yeah, I mean, and Grant Hill and the USA committee, I mean, to your point, I do remember reading that like there was a roster spot open if he wanted to take it. He didn't want to, obviously, because he was coming from a season where he only played 12 games. He was recovering from an injury. I just think it's kind of premature to have these conversations because I think the biggest thing right now is we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in 4 years. There's a good chance that, Cade is a multiple-time All-Star and the Pistons are in the playoffs. There's also a world where maybe, they just can't figure out how to put a roster around Cade Cunningham and maybe you let him go. I think it's so early right now to have these conversations. And to kind of use the word bust really casually, I think is where I kind of took exception to it. I was just like, you can't average 22 points and almost 8 assists and be considered a bust.
At a certain point, if Cade Cunningham was going to be a bust, it would have happened by now. Busts happen within, you can tell a player is a bust within the first 2 to 3 years of their career. With all due respect to Killian Hayes, it was the conversation about him being a bust was starting to happen towards the end of his first year, even with some of the health stuff. There was never a moment where people were like, oh, that is a hit, right? Like Darko Milicic, they knew in the players said they knew in the first practice that he wasn't the guy, right? It's not something where it's like, oh, in year 7 after they've signed their contract, really the only player that I can think of that fits that description is Ben Simmons. And I don't think Cade Cunningham's going to forget how to shoot the basketball. So I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I remember, I don't even know why I remembered it, but people were comparing Cade to Michael Carter Williams, his rookie year. I think it was a 97. I don't think it was Jim, but I know it was a 97-1, the ticket host, comparing him to Michael Carter Williams and saying he'll have a good rookie year, but he's not going to adapt to the NBA. What I thought was just a complete bad take.
It's a take. That is a take. Yeah,
it's a very cold take. Honestly, I think kind of having those bus conversations, especially with the guy that hasn't really had the help that we think that he needs and the spacing that he needs. I made a top 5 list of the best players he's played with, and it's just you go down the list, it's Jeremy Grant, Kelly Olynyk, Mason Plumlee, Bojan Bogdanovic. He hasn't really played with another all-star level type player.
The amount of teammates he's had in his short career, by the way, insane. Do you know how many?
It's a lot.
70.
Holy crap.
According to ProBallers.com, he's had 70 teammates throughout his career. And mind you, one of those years was the season after the COVID, the big COVID year. So there was still some of the, the positive testing, and you had to bring in players on 10 days. But then the next year, when that wasn't a factor, they broke that record of most players to ever play for the Pistons in a single year. So even when that wasn't a factor, he's still having guys just cycle through in and out. And I mean, even think about a guy like Simone Fontecchio, who came in, essentially had no reason to, want to believe in the Detroit situation or be excited about signing long-term, but he raved about playing with Cade and talked about being excited about playing with him long-term. And so, you're already seeing the impact. Now imagine having a Mikal Beasley, a Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. He's legitimately going to have two guys on the court that made more threes than the Pistons' top 6 3-point shooters last year combined.
Yeah. And you also have to take in consideration, like, someone at Fontecchio at the end of the year said, nobody asked me where I like the ball. Cade, first conversation we had, he said, where do you like the ball? So that way I can get it to you, so you can get off shots. To me, that spoke more volume to Cade, saying, like, I finally got some help out here. I don't have to take 20 shots a game. And I know we kind of went completely off topic with this, and I love that, man. I really do.
Oh yeah,
but I don't think Cade is a bust, and
No.
it kind of it annoyed me when I read it. It was just like, I get it's August, I get there's nothing to talk about. Half the city was upset that they didn't trade Tarek Skubal so they could have something to talk about. And he's playing against the Yankees right now, and he looks really good. I don't know what it is about local radio station where they want to trade our best players like Cade and Tarek Skubal, and I don't get it, man. Like, do you want us to be miserable?
Yeah, I it's almost like we're not going to be good right away, so we might as well get a haul. But I think people just take for granted just how hard it was for Detroit to get a Cade Cunningham. Again, do people remember the last time we had the number 1 overall pick before Cade? It was 51 years. It was 1970 when Bob Lanier was the number 1 overall pick. And unless I'm mistaken, there was not a lottery system back in 1970. So they did not get the number 1 pick, by the luck of ping pong balls until 2021. Every other year, the last 3 years, they got the number 5 pick 3 years in a row. And so now those same people that are trashing the Pistons for relying on the lottery luck, going for the ping pong balls, are now saying, trade Cade, go keep doing that. What?
Yeah.
It makes sense, man.
I don't know. I feel like you get to a tipping point when you just saw last season. You're like, you know what? Let's just try it again. Let's try our luck. And I mean, I don't know how many more years we can get 5th without, like, some Pistons fans not going to the New York office with pitchforks. Like, when's the tipping point? Like, 5th again next year or the year after that? Like, I don't know, man.
Well, I think if this last year showed anything, well, especially over the last couple of years, it really showed, like, there isn't incentive to tank anymore. I mean, the Atlanta Hawks, they were a playing team. And even though, they probably won the worst lottery they could have won, they nonetheless won the lottery and almost made it to the playoffs. So, when you are a team like the Pistons, when you've had the best odds in theory and keep getting that number 5, which I think that kind of speaks to, they changed the numbers because they wanted to, discourage tanking. They changed those odd numbers around. I would argue there maybe needs to be some more tweaking. If the worst team in the league manages to keep getting the number 5 pick, and there's not a way to get a better pick than that, I would say your odds are maybe a little broken, but that's kind of a whole different discussion. Maybe we're a little too close to the situation, but nonetheless, that just seems a little broken. But yeah, no, like, at this point, the NBA has shown you don't want to rely on luck. And all the teams that are the best teams in the league, they haven't relied on luck. The Denver Nuggets, where's their lottery pick?
Right.
Like, I could keep going, but yeah.
I know it's the whole lottery situation. Like, I was telling fans, is like, statistically, the second pick is the pick that doesn't fall the most. It's like, we had the second pick, I think, for like a week, and then Washington went on a win streak. I was like, wow. Oh well.
Yep.
One of the next topics I wanted to talk about was a new addition, Malik Beasley. Now, he did an event. I think it was like was it like a school event for kids out in Northville?
Yeah, so the Pistons just had so, like, every year they have, like, their Pistons Academy camp that they do for kids out in the summer. And so Malik Beasley and Ron Holland Jr. both showed up to the Pistons Academy camp, and both had some pretty cool comments. I think I know which one you're referring to about wanting to bring back Detroit basketball.
Yeah, that was the topic. I wanted to get kind of like your take on that. So Malik obviously is from Detroit, and I learned this from talking to Corey, our good friend Corey Woods, who crushed it this week. By the way, we're going to be talking about Isaiah Thomas.
Dude's been killing it over the last couple of years. Shout out Corey.
I love to see it, man. Like, the Chris Broussard interview was really good. And I think good things are going to happen for him because there's no way he could just be a local reporter. I think he's going to be a national reporter before we know it.
Dude had quotes all over the timeline this week from his Isaiah Thomas interview. Took over the headlines for a few days there.
Yeah, it was great to see. So I learned that Malik has family in Detroit. His mom is from the 6 Mile area in Detroit. And obviously Malik got to watch the Going to Work Pistons. And he said he wants to bring the Detroit Pistons basketball energy back. So my question to you would be, what do you think of these comments by Malik Beasley? And do you think that he could try to bring back that energy that we watched as kids growing up?
Yeah, I mean, you love to hear those comments. I mean, for one, the fact that there's a player that is cognizant of knowing what that is. Like, I think, like the thing with a lot of players that come to Detroit, they've heard about how awesome of a sports town it is. And they've seen even, over the last couple of years. I mean, even last year with all the turmoil they went through, the Pistons still finished 15th in attendance, which, is a marvel within of itself. Right. But like they still haven't seen we know of the days when they sold out 300 plus games in a row. There wasn't a day back then when there wasn't a sellout, in a Pistons game. So, just for him to know that and to, to be cognizant of that and to have that drive, to bring that back is cool to see. I think the thing, that I point to with like Malik Beasley that like impresses me, especially from like the perspective of like what Trajan Langdon did this offseason. Malik Beasley is the type of guy in past regimes where we probably would have given him like a 4-year, $64 million contract and not even batted an eye, right? Like if it would have been like, oh, we got a really good 3-point shooter. Welcome to Detroit. Yeah, we overpaid, but we're Detroit. But, for Trajan Langdon to be as patient as he was to let the market play out and to get him on a 1-year, $6 million deal where if you like what you see, you can always bring him back. But, you have flexibility and you're getting someone who is as good as he is for the role that he plays at that value. So, just can't speak enough to how much, that brings. Now, I want to temper expectations a little bit because, when you hear Monty Williams saying last year, he wants to be remembered as an all-time great Detroit coach and, want to be embraced by the city. Like, I'm old enough to remember those comments, right? So it's like, you got to take certain things with a grain of salt. But when you have a player that's from here, that knows what it is and, actually, can show that passion, like that's real. And, I hope we do see it brought back because I mean, you and I think a big reason why we do what we do is because we know when the Pistons are at their apex, there is not a feeling that can be beat of a packed Pistons arena when Detroit basketball is being yelled after a big play was made. Nothing can beat that.
Yeah, I mean, those times growing up, I didn't know how spoiled I was to have a good basketball team, and then this past season made me appreciate them even more. But I love hearing players want to bring back that energy. Now, I don't think we can play defense to go in the work Pistons. I don't think you can do
We're
that.
We're not that team defensively for sure. No.
I mean, arguably, I would say our best defender right now is Asar Thompson. And then you could have a debate who the second best defender is.
Yep.
I think when some people maybe, go watch, I think Amari had a interview with him. He posted it on Twitter. A lot of other beat reporters had it as well. The way I took it is he wants to get the Pistons back to playing winning basketball. Not so much like, locking people down and holding people under 70 points. Because, I mean, teams score 70 points at halftime, Sean. Like, you're just not going to be doing that. I think
those days are long gone.
Yeah, I think his comments were more of a standpoint of like, I want to get the city of Detroit excited. I want to get them hyped up. And if you just kind of like YouTube some of Malik Beasley's comments, I hope he does kind of do like the Harlem Shake when he shoots a three to Detroit, because I know Detroiters would absolutely love that.
Oh yeah.
I was really big on Malik Beasley too. I mean, I had him in my top 10 is the players to go after. I didn't expect 1 year, $6 million, because to your point, that would have been a guy like 4 years, 64 million. That, past regimes definitely would have given a Malik Beasley a type of contract like that.
That would have been the marquee signing. Like I remember a few years ago, please welcome Avery Bradley, introductory press conference going down, like that was the big move. And this year it's maybe the third or fourth biggest move they made this offseason, which for what he brings is saying something.
Yeah, it's wild because like when I know this is completely off topic. It's another Malik. When I saw Malik Monk resign in Sacramento before the offseason like really started officially, I was like, oh, the shooting guard market might be pretty expensive. And then you see guys like Malik Beasley sign for $6 million, which is like dirt cheap. And then you see guys like Gary Trent sign for dirt cheap as well. I was really surprised that the shooting guard market was so bad this summer. I thought, Malik Monk's deal really would have had agents like salivating, but I mean, like getting a guy of his caliber, a high volume 3-point shooter that, shoots around 7-8 threes a game at anywhere between like 38 to 40% this past season in Milwaukee, having a high volume 3-point shooter that could possibly start, possibly come off the bench, help Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. I think it was just an A+ signing in my opinion.
Yep. I mean, this was just a bizarre summer. Like, not to get too far off topic, but you bring up guys like Gary Trent Jr. Like, there were a lot of guys, like you said, where just the market did not play out the way that they thought, and a lot of that was just because of a lot of the stuff we saw with the change to like the way the salary cap works and those taxing brackets that really punish teams if you get really if you have like a really hard cap. Caleb Martin, did you know what happened to him this summer? Do you know that story?
I saw it on Twitter, but I never clicked on the article. It's something with Clutch Sports, right?
So Caleb Martin, he was a free agent this offseason, and he had a deal in place with Miami that would have been 5 years, $65 million to stay with the Heat, but his agent thought that he could get a better deal somewhere else. So he told him to turn it down. And so then when the market played out, it got so bad to the point where he signed a contract for less than half that with the Philadelphia 76ers. So he could have gotten $65 million to stay on Miami Heat. He ended up getting 32 to go play in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
like that is like when you talk about all time fumbling of a contract from an agent, that is up. And like even guys, I bet Malik Beasley thought he was getting more this summer. And I think part of this deal is to show what he can do and to potentially set him up for something in next offseason, which if he plays really well and does start to bring back some of that energy, what reason couldn't it be in Detroit?
I don't necessarily get into the agent stuff, but the more I read about Clutch Sports, like I remember Nerlens Noel turned down a crap load of money from OKC, and then like the Knicks didn't give him what Clutch said that he was going to get.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. Like if I was a player, I'd probably sign as like CAA or whatever, like because their players are getting paid. I don't know what's happening with Clutch because Caleb Martin was a really big glue guy for the Miami Heat last year. I even saw some Pistons fans. I know we're going completely off topic. Like I would like Caleb Martin on this team. Like, he's a really good defender. Can kind of just do a little bit of everything. But yeah, this summer for free agency, outside of like the DeRozan stuff, it was like really stale and dry.
Yeah, I mean, it just showed how much more stringent like teams are really working, like under certain limits. And I mean, the interesting thing will just, I think a lot of teams, especially over the next, like few months, like I think the Pistons will be primed to, be able to do something at the deadline because, especially as these teams start to like, approach those like first and second aprons and, really, face reality of who they actually are. Like, just about every team's like, oh, we can make a run towards the playoffs, but then you figure out by November, December, what you can actually do. I think a lot of teams will be in that position. And so, I think like, the Atlantas of the world, even Portland to a certain extent, like even New Orleans, like there's a ton of different teams out there that are kind of in this weird limbo, like, okay, but what are we? And there are like, core like foundational, like, solid players that could be available in theory over the next few years. And just saying, one of the only teams in the league with cap space, the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, yeah. It's Trajan has done a really good job at just bringing in his guys. I just saw that the old Pistons strength and conditioning coach is actually going to be going over to the Charlotte Hornets. And the Pistons have a brand new strength and conditioning coach. I believe Pistons PR put out like a huge list of everything that the Pistons did, from like front office executives to analytic guys to strength and conditioning coaches, which I think getting rid of the, not saying that he was responsible for a lot of the injuries, but if you look over the injuries while he was here, the Pistons had quite a lot, and they're bringing in a guy that necessarily didn't really like work in the NBA. He more worked in the NHL for the Washington Capitals, but he's been doing it for over 20 plus years. I think that's a sign in the right direction, because a lot of fans are like, ever since Ernie Kander left, we just have not been the same team health wise. So Trajan has done a phenomenal job. I know I went completely off topic with that.
It's just good to have fresh starts from the top down, especially when you go through, a lot of the turmoil, that the Pistons went through. And I think like what people don't understand is like when the Pistons are going through that type of losing, it's not just the locker room that feels it. It's the business office. It's the, it's the PR department. It's every facet of that. Even the janitors, the camera operators, like everyone feels the losing, right? So it affects everybody. And, especially, like you said, it is so hard to, pinpoint where, things go wrong with health. A lot of it really is, like freak stuff, but, to have, kind of that fresh start and to bring in someone, like you said, that does have that level of experience, is really key. I think the thing that, especially with the staff that Trajan Langdon, put together this summer, he brought in, like we talk about like Fred Vincent, the shooting coach, they brought in from New Orleans. He was there for 14 years, back when Monty Williams was the head coach for, for the Hornets at the time. So, the fact that he was willing to leave that situation when, by the way, let's not forget, like, it's not a hot take to believe or to say that it's not unrealistic that New Orleans could be getting a ring here in the next few years. So for all these guys to not only essentially risk losing a ring, but also just completely packing up what you're doing to go somewhere else says a lot about what they think of the person. And the confidence that the Pistons are projecting in him, it's all real. Like everything I've heard about him is just how blown away they've been just from the top down. I mean, he was a double major at Duke while being a professional basketball player, and now he's really been primed to be in this position for a long time. So to show that he's really hit the ground running and shown just how much of a plan he's had, like, I think obviously you can't really give too much of a judgment yet, but I think the thing that's very clear is it's not too big for his britches, for lack of better terms. Like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's, you talk about Fred Vincent, but like he also brought Michael Blackstone with them too, who it's kind of been the wizard with the cap space. And you look at the contracts this season, and you're like, he basically poached like part of the New Orleans Pelicans front office. And I have some guys pieces. I have some guys over at Pro Pelicans Talk, and they were saying like, yo, like, quit poaching our guys, man. Like, I guess David Griffin was like really upset when Blackstone left, and even more upset when Fred Vincent left, because two of those guys are like really well-respected guys around the NBA. And it's crazy that like Trajan had that kind of pull, and like you kind of look at the front office, like, Sean, they got Dennis Lindsey, which I don't think anyone is talking about right now. Like Dennis Lindsey was like a longtime executive with the Utah Jazz, and like
he was the architect of a first place Utah Jazz team that was one of the winningest rosters of the last decade. Which, I mean, listen, they never got. I don't think they really fulfilled their full potential, and there's a litany of reasons for that. But it definitely wasn't the roster construction. It definitely wasn't the the players they put together, and essentially for so when when Trajan Langdon was brought into New Orleans, he was the finalist with David Griffin for the president job, but they loved Langdon so much that they wanted to bring him in too. Well, now 5 years later, for Lindsey and Langdon to be the finalist for this job, Langdon gets it, and then they bring in Lindsey almost in like a parallel situation to when Langdon was in New Orleans. I think that's pretty cool, but also to show the fact that, even when he didn't get that job, he still believes enough to work alongside him and believes in the plan and the vision and to just have that expertise. Like, I think, the talk around the Pistons front office over the last few years has been, too many cooks in the kitchen and maybe cooks that haven't necessarily, worked around the kitchen too much. But now you have, multiple people who have done it before, know what it takes to construct a roster and what it actually looks like. And also, by the way, two teams that were really good defensively and fit the identity of like what we want Detroit basketball to look like. So I think that's pretty important too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of going underlooked because he was in the hiring process, the same as Langdon. And it's very rare that you see two guys that were finalists for the job both work in the same front office together. But
Yep.
I tip my cap to the Pistons front office for bringing in a guy like Dennis Lindsey, who, if you look at those Utah Jazz teams while he was there, they drafted some really good guys, some undrafted free agents like Royce O'Neal. So even Trajan, if you look at his New Orleans stuff, like, getting guys like Jose Alvarado and Najee Marshall, who are undrafted free agents, like they have an eye for talent. And it'll be really interesting to see who these Exhibit 10 contracts are, because I know we'll probably be getting those in a couple of weeks, because they can carry up to 20 plus people on the roster, going into, preseason and training camp and stuff like that. So I think they're only at around like 14 or 15. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do with that in the last two-way. And it kind of gets you excited because you have guys that have done it before and they have an eye for talent and have eyes for talent in terms of like, these guys are like actually NBA players, like rotational players.
Yep. And, let's not overlook the fact that, like, we're not just talking we're not overhyping Dennis Lindsey here. Like, he is legitimately seen as one of, if not the best shooting coaches in the world. It's him and the shooting coach in Oklahoma City. Like, those are the two prominent shooting coaches in the NBA. And one of them is in Detroit.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think we've had a shooting coach like that since David Hoopla, and he's in New York right now. And he used to be Michael Jordan's shooting coach. He was on the Van Gundy staff for like a year and then he dipped. But I mean, it's good to have a shooting coach like that, because we really need our 3-point percentage to go up.
Well, and
really bad.
Well, and especially when you're taking, like when you come in and take a swing on a guy like Ron Holland after taking swings on guys like Asar Thompson, on guys like, Jaden Ivey to put alongside of Cade Cunningham. The fact that you have someone that, has proven that he can help players reach that next level, but knows what it takes. I mean, let's not forget he took Lonzo Ball, who had one of the worst shooting forms coming into the league we've maybe ever seen, and then made Lonzo at one point one of the most efficient 3-point shooters in the entire league.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the track record with everything that Fred Vincent has done, like
Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, like the list goes on.
It does. I do want to get into the schedule, because it did drop this week, and I kind of wanted to get like your reaction to it. Which game are you looking forward to the most, and just the overall schedule, just like a 30,000-foot view of it?
Yeah. So I think, when you look at the schedule, obviously, the initial reaction is kind of, like this is pretty tough. But, at the same time, I think one thing that's important to remember is any schedule is going to look pretty tough when you come off a season where you lost 28 games in a row and had the worst record in franchise history. And naturally, your schedule is going to look pretty tough and you're not going to be super confident in how many you're going to win. But having said that, that first week is going to be fascinating. And, for me, I immediately, just because, maybe this is part of me wanting the drama, but I immediately look at, October 25th in Cleveland, JB Bickerstaff going up against his old team, division rival, the Michigan, Ohio thing. I can imagine, especially, with a guy like a Jalen Duren getting all physical with a Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, like I can see that game being a barn burner. And, I'm not saying JB is going to come in and push this rivalry between him and his old team. I think if anything, he's just going to treat it like any other game, but almost kind of similarly to when the Pistons would play the Raptors when Dwayne Casey was the coach. I think anytime you're playing for your coach against his former team, you have extra motivation to want to go out and to get a win on their behalf. So I think that's going to be pretty good. And then the fact that they have to play Boston literally the next night is criminal. I think like whoever put together that schedule just must have a real gripe. But I think other than that, I mean, I want to see like how the Pistons can do. Especially it's that first stretch of the season was always going to be tough for me. It's how can they do after the All-Star break? And listen, the first part of the schedule is pretty tough, but I mean they have an opportunity after the All-Star break to have some decent wins. Maybe not when they play Boston or Denver or Golden State or Clippers, but my point still stands. There's stretches in here where they can chain together some wins, but it's definitely, especially over the first month, I think we're going to learn a lot about where this roster is day one and just how much they have to grow.
Yeah, same here. Shout out to Eric Vincent watching on Facebook.
My guy.
Yeah, had him on a month ago. First time I ever had him on, and I think we talked for almost 2 hours. We just hit it off. Shout out to Eric, man. Really good dude. So I actually made a graphic for people that haven't seen just like the first 10 games of the schedule, and I'll put it on the screen for people to see that are watching right now. Like,
it's
to your point, Sean, like these are the first 10 games. And if you look at it, like I asked fans, it's like, what do you think the Pistons record will be in the first 10 games? And I got like, some people are trying to be funny, like 10-0, 9-1. But realistically, like I'm looking at it, like I feel like you could beat Indiana if they're not like at full gear, because their offense is just like crazy, just efficiency wise. Like, and it's a home opener. The fans are going to be there. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be loud. To your point, JB going back to Cleveland, his second game, I think the emotions are going to be really, really high. I really do. But he knows those bigs. He knows Jared Allen. He knows Evan Mobley. He knows that team like the back of his hand. So he'd probably know how to prep for that team better than anyone. But to your point, a back-to-back with Cleveland and Boston, to your point, yeah, bro, that's criminal. Like I don't know what the Pistons did. If we're still getting, punished for the malice of the palace, let it go. Like like let it go, man. But like, yeah, the first 10 games of the season, man, they're absolutely just brutal. Like that's a top 10 game stretch.
Yeah, just in that list alone, the two of the three teams that made the Eastern Conference Finals, the team that was in the conference semis, the other team that was in the conference semis, the Miami Heat, another conference semis team in Philly. Like it is literally just heavyweight after heavyweight after heavyweight. And that's the NBA. You're never going to really have too many stretches where you're playing against inferior talent. But when you talk about really proving grounds and seeing what this team is capable of, and especially if you're looking at, okay, how do they avoid having a disastrous stretch like last season? They're really going to have to put together some wins against some of these teams. And I know we're thinking about what would be a good record. I think if they went out of that stretch at 4-6, I think that they would be thrilled. At 3-7, I think that even though they wouldn't say it publicly, I think they would take it.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of fans, and we'll probably get into it later, but a lot of fans this time of year, expectations, because we haven't watched basketball since April, and they're like, I think this is a play-in team. I think this is a playoff team. It's just you look at the schedule, and it's just man, if they don't, start the season off, at least to your point, winning 4 games, 3 games, even 2 games, you could have a situation where it's creeping in the back of your head. This guy's lost 28 straight. And we brought back a lot of the guys that were part of that 28 straight losses team. And I think for them, they have to come out, aggressive. They have to come out strong. Um, I don't need them to finish 5-5. I don't. If
Mhm,
they do, I'd be ecstatic.
mhm.
Because I think a lot of these games are going to be closer than people expect because you have vets like Tobias out there with Cade that could be a secondary option. You have guys like Malik Beasley, Paul Reed, Isaiah Stewart. I think isn't going to be forced to be your starting power forward anymore. You could have him
Yep.
more as an energy big off the bench if you want, or maybe a backup center. I don't know. You've addressed a lot of areas of need, and you have year 4 of Cade, year 3 of Ivy and Duren. Like I think this team is going to win more than 14 games. I do,
Mhm.
but I kind of want to like temper the expectations because I see some people like, yeah, man, it's a playing team. If Ivy takes a jump, if Duren takes a jump, and everyone takes a jump, it's like, guys, like that schedule is tough. To your point, those were all like really deep playoff teams.
Yeah. And, I think, obviously when looking at, like what the win total, like I don't think, competing for a play-in spot is out of the question. But I think people also have to recognize if they were to get a 10-game win jump from last season, if they were to get to 24 wins, I know fans don't want to hear it, but that would be a great season. That would be a victory because you are heading in the right direction and you are getting double-digit win increases, especially off of what you had. And I know fans don't want to hear that because you almost want to just you know move off of last year and just not let it set you back. But the reality of it is when you go through a season like that, you do start over from a lower point. You do have to build your way back up. And I think like a lot of the things that JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon like really talked about is they want to make it fun again. Like like
Yeah.
like I think people like obviously there's a pressure, like this is a business. People want to come in and and succeed, but I think a lot of young teams, you get so miserable going through the woes of losing that you forget you're playing your childhood passion for a profession. Like this is still basketball at the end of the day. And so if you're not having fun, how are you going to go out there and actually succeed? Right. So I think like I know people might scoff at that, but like I think that's something the Pistons sorely missed last year was someone who had the perspective of make this fun.
I think to your point, because I remember JB Bickerstaff saying, I want to make it fun for guys. I want them to come into work excited to learn, excited to play basketball, excited just to, be together. I think sometimes what gets lost in coaching is these coaches have one speed and it's just basketball.
Yep.
I mean, if you really want these guys to succeed, you have to get to know them off the court.
Yeah.
You have to get to know like these players as human beings and off the court because if you do that, I think JB has that ability. They're gonna play a lot harder for you. Like
Yeah.
I know for a fact, like Isaiah Stewart, Cade, they love Dwayne Casey because Dwayne Casey, he had 2 gears. Like he could talk basketball with you all day, but he could also, communicate with you outside of basketball as a human being.
Mhm.
And I think last year, not to take a shot at Monty, I think Monty just had that one gear where it's just like basketball, 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 basketball. And he would kind of shade you if you played bad in a press conference. We saw it multiple times last season. Certain players got called out each and every game. I don't really think he had that ability in that locker room to kind of just switch it off. Be like, guys, like, you want to practice today? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you could tell like during the 28-game losing streak, like they had like no confidence in themselves whatsoever.
Yeah. I think especially over this last year, again, not like you said, it's not to take shots at um, it's not to take shots at Monty, but it's pretty clear there was a disconnect, in the locker room there. And there wasn't that same cultivated relationship between the coaching staff and and the roster as there was when Dwayne Casey was in the building. And I think, listen, I think Monty is a guy that does really well with veteran rosters. And, I think especially in Phoenix towards the end there, he's with a lot of veteran players. And I think Monty can succeed in a veteran locker room in the future. But I think there's something to be said about being able to, work with a younger group of guys, knowing their shortcomings and being able to work alongside them. Like, I don't want to look at hindsight too much, but I almost wonder if the DeAndre Ayton situation should have given Detroit more pause before bringing in a Monty Williams, because obviously you look at it from the outside looking in, you could certainly look at, DeAndre Ayton, a lot of the things he does. And obviously he's a real character, right? But he's a 23, 22-year-old kid on a roster full of 27, 28-year-old men, right? Like, of course he's going to act dumb. So, I think, like the thing, with him, with Monty towards the end was he just didn't have the patience for it. Right. And I think, with JB, one thing about him is that he just has a contagious energy for, teaching and for working with young guys and seeing them succeed. And that's what he's done at every stop he's been in. Even before his stop in Cleveland, he was in Memphis, did really good work there. Like JB Bickerstaff is just a solid developer and a good teacher. And one thing that I think he's really good at, by the way, too, is I think he's a really good communicator. And that just sticks out right away. And, especially when you're talking about teaching and helping players develop, that's a huge thing that the Pistons needed badly.
Yeah, I think if JB was the coach that replaced Dwayne Casey, I think this team would be in a completely different situation. This is not me trying to say, like, if JB was here last year, that 28-game losing streak wouldn't have happened.
Right.
This is more me saying, like, I think JB was that type of coach, like that development coach. Like, I know a lot of people, like, during the process, they were really high on Charles Lee and Kevin Ollie, like, young guys that just didn't get that head coaching opportunity. I think JB is a mixture of, he's had success, but he also knows how to work with young guys and make it fun and has a clear-cut plan. Like, during the presser, like, he broke down how Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham could play together. I never heard that from Monty Williams when, players asked about it. He's just like, yeah, they're good players. Like, really excited to be here. The JB's just like, yeah, we got to stagger them. He's like, I think they can play in transition together. It's just like,
well, Cade, I think he can play 3 positions. I think he can be a 3. Like, like he can do multiple different things.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air with JB Bickerstaff. And it's a guy that you didn't really have to bribe to come here. It's a guy that, he said openly he wanted to move to California with his kids and just take a year off. But he said Trajan called me and he gave me his plan and he believed that I could get that plan done. And he's just like, man, I'm in. Let's go. Like, I absolutely love hearing that.
Last year, Tom had to fly to Monty and meet with him in his house in Los Angeles. JB drove on his off day to Detroit to meet with JB, or to meet with Trajan so he could do it in person. Like that's a pretty stark contrast.
Yeah, it's really, it's completely different. I think it's something that, like, Tom Gore's kind of had to, like, take a seat back and say, like, hey, like, you don't have to go out and get the name. You don't have to go out and get the big fish. I mean, you look at coaches like OKC's head coach right now. I can't think of his name right now. It's just off the top of my head, but, like, he's a young up and coming coach and they have really good young talent. Obviously having SGA helps out a lot, but, like, they still have young guys. They're a fairly young team, just like the Detroit Pistons are, but they're in the playoffs. They're competing. Like, you don't really need that big name to be successful in the NBA.
Yeah, no, you really don't. And, I think there's something to be said too about, letting coaches grow with a team and allowing them to, like, go through those things. One thing that boggles my mind too with JB Bickerstaff is this is his first time being hired as a head coach where he wasn't an assistant on the staff first and they had to remove the interim tag from him. Like, this is the first time he can actually come in and just straight up have the job from day one and have it be his. Like, the fact that that's his first opportunity in that capacity is kind of mind-boggling to me, especially when you consider just how good of a coach he's been over the last, like, 10 years. But yeah, I mean, like, nonetheless, yeah, like, it sets the Pistons up in a lot better of a situation. And although, I know Pistons fans would love to see, like, a Charles Lee or, someone different last off season, I think the fact that they were able this offseason to bring in the new coach, but also have that new front office change along with it. I think having, I think we've seen, like, not to just keep talking about the Lions too much, but I mean, we've seen with the Lions, how, like, having that unity, those two guys being brought in at the same time and having that same vision, just how much, that really meant for them. I think you saw like semblances of that with Trajan and with JB, with how things are starting now. So
yeah, it's very exciting times. I'm excited because I miss basketball because I'm a sicko. But
oh yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I call my subscribers sickos. We're all sickos. We love the Pistons. The fact
yeah,
that someone in the live stream last week said you did a podcast for 2 hours, Anthony. You are the definition of a sicko. It's August.
yeah,
What the hell is wrong with you?
yeah. No, we are sickos of the highest order, and like I call it. I take it as a term of endearment.
Yeah,
So
same here.
mhm.
It's another word for diehard. I want to say maybe.
Yeah, yeah, hmm
So obviously, like I've mentioned before, it's August.
hmm
So I was watching ESPN before I went to work, and Kendrick Perkins comes on the air and he shows his top 5 point guards.
Oh no.
Now, here's the thing, man. I think when we have these conversations, everyone has a different top 5, but I think the one consistent is it's usually Magic, it's usually Stockton, it's usually Isaiah Thomas, you would think. But
Yep.
for the people that didn't see it, this was Kendrick Perkins' top 5, and we'll go over it. So John Stockton, number 5, Russell Westbrook, number 4,
Oh no.
Oscar Robertson, number 3,
Oh no.
Magic Johnson, number 2,
Oh no.
and Stephen Curry, number 1. John, I mean, we got to. Where's Isaiah Thomas?
Yeah, the no Isaiah Thomas is just listen, the fact that Russell Westbrook is 4 and Isaiah Thomas is nowhere to be seen on this list is just a level of basketball heresy that I don't even know I can begin to fully comprehend on this podcast. But I mean, look, when you talk about Stephen Curry, it's hard to argue that he's one of, if not the greatest guard ever. I mean, the things that he's done on the basketball court is insane, but at the same time, with what you associate with what Steph Curry's done, you almost don't necessarily associate that with, all-time great point guard play. You associate with that with his shooting acumen and the things that he can do to spread the basketball court. Uh, Benjamin even just said this too. No, even Jason Kidd would have made more sense over a Russell Westbrook, even though you look at what Russ did with the triple doubles and things like that. When you talk about like a sheer point guard, even like Steve Nash, like like you know what I mean? Like not under Russell Westbrook, like that's yeah. To me, when you're having a conversation about greatest point guards of all time and Isaiah Thomas is not in the top 3, you lost me completely. And like at the very least, the top 3. Like you can have a conversation about where those names rank, and you can have your reasoning. For me, Isaiah's probably number 1 or 2, but if he's not at the least in the top 3, let alone not even in the top 5, you've just completely lost me. And it's I know Kendrick Perkins is like the low hanging fruit. He's like the easy fodder, but I mean, you're not really helping your case as to why that is when you're making dog lists like this. So
Yeah, I mean, he blocked me on Twitter years ago.
that's probably good for you, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure people remember when Nikola Vucevic was in Orlando, and ESPN production team or the producers, I think they did it on purpose because he couldn't say Vucevic, and
Yep.
he said it for like 10 minutes straight. And I saw a jersey swap, and someone like literally swapped what Kendrick Perkins was trying to say, and I retweeted it. I tagged him, and he blocked me. But
Yep.
dude, when I saw this list, I'm like, I respect that you have a guy that you played for in your top 5. I do, but when you're talking about the greatest point guards of all time, you have to put Steph Curry, I think, in this list now. He's a 4-time champion, and he's just
Yeah.
changed the game as we know it, as we've watched basketball.
And perhaps one of, if not like one of the greatest Olympic runs we've ever seen from like a basketball player, like just the things he did over those last couple of games to secure the gold medal were just out of this world.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Curry will go down as one of the best small guards I think in NBA history when it's all said and done.
Mhm.
Magic Johnson as well. Like Magic Johnson completely changed the game. I think he would be number one for me personally. I have Isaiah it too. I do. I even though Curry has won 4 championships, what Isaiah had to accomplish, the players that he had to go through. Not too many players can say that they beat Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson on their way to winning an NBA championship. In fact, I think he's the only player that could say he did that.
Yeah.
Like the level of competition that Isaiah played in was the toughest brand of, late 80s basketball that I think a lot of my subscribers, because I know my subscribers are a little bit older, between that 30 and 40 range, so they got to watch the Detroit Bad Boys growing up. I personally didn't. I've watched a lot of YouTube, a lot of 30 for 30s, a lot of, League Pass
Sure,
stuff.
it's smart to call your subscribers old, Anthony. You're just
it's
full
okay.
out putting them on blast here.
Hey man, I'm old too. I'm 32. Feel like I'm 62 sometimes, man. I swear. No one warned me about back pain in your 30s. Good Lord. It's a real thing.
It is.
Hey, man, like people are literally 60 in here watching it, man. Like that's awesome.
Hey, let's go, man. Let's go. Love to see
it.
that, man.
I wasn't trying to make them like calling them old, but like I think kind of getting back on track, to not have Isaiah Thomas in your top 5 as greatest point guards of all time, I don't understand it. I think it's kind of clickbaity. I think it's kind of disrespectful. And he's really lucky Isaiah Thomas didn't see it, because if Isaiah Thomas saw it, he'd be calling kind of like he did Mike Greenberg like last month, saying like, what do you mean like me and Joe Dumars weren't the best backcourt because they put like Steph and Clay above them? He's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean we weren't like the top 5 backcourt of all time?
Yeah, like I think respectfully, there's so much, there's so much love for that Michael Jordan Bulls run and the dynasty that they were. And the thing that I think kind of drives me wild is people almost feel the need to bury the Bad Boys in order to bring up that team. But I think the part that even Michael Jordan has said himself, and the thing that nobody can dispute, is that team doesn't exist if the Bad Boy Pistons weren't in their way. And Isaiah Thomas, when you talk about, again, if we're talking about the greatest point guards to ever play the game and what that means as a floor general, as someone who can run an offense, who can score the basketball, who can set their teammates up, who makes those around him better, he is absolutely on that list. And if you're talking about playoff performances, if you're talking about being at your best when it matters, I mean, the Isaiah Thomas sprained ankle game in the NBA Finals in 1988 is one of the greatest playoff performances ever that no one ever talks about, because the Pistons lost that game. But if you've never seen it, the dude just went out in the second half, scored 20 plus points on a bum high ankle sprain, could literally not even walk, and was the best player on the court with both teams. That included Magic Johnson. So like the dude was an absolute bona fide dog, and to not even have him in your top 5, with all due respect, even I wasn't around back then, and even I know that Isaiah Thomas was a bad man, and Russell Westbrook as a point guard can't lace his shoes. He just can't.
No, like I said, I get it, because it's his former teammate.
One of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. One of the most transcendent players we've ever seen. Not one of the greatest point guards.
No, I mean, no, not at all. I mean, I think Isaiah could play in today's generation, just the type of player he is. I mean, like his handles, getting to the basket, he'd probably shoot a lot more threes in today's game. I mean, he's just a type of player that you could put in any era and he could probably dominate. Like it's just crazy, because we're in Michigan, where we see the disrespect every day. And whether it's Pistons, Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, like the disrespect Detroit gets, the Detroit sports teams get, it's really unwarranted at times. I don't really understand not having, arguably, the greatest Piston of all time not in your top 5. But hey, man, it's perk. As Charles Barkley said, you average 5 points a game, I'm not talking to you.
Oh my God, that was one of the greatest public comebacks I've ever seen in my entire life. Charles, talk about a Mount Rushmore. Like Charles Barkley as a media member, right at the top.
Charles has been on an all-time run ever since like the TNT and Amazon stuff is like kind of
Oh,
like come out. He just does not give a F. Like he is just roasting people. He just doesn't care. Like
I thought he already didn't care, but he looked like he was like emotionally on edge in comparison to how little he cares now. Like it's amazing. I love it.
yeah, I mean, like I said, they got the last year of TNT. I can't wait to see what they say this year because I know it's gonna be an all-timer.
Well, and now there's reports that they might try and like make them do like a sports wide show instead of just basketball, which like could you imagine having those guys cover the Kentucky Derby or something? That would be a whole other, but like, we need them in the NBA, man. They're just they are too important. They are
Yeah,
too foundational.
yeah. Just don't let Charles in San Antonio, and you're all good. But
Oh, yeah, especially for those poor women, man. For those poor women, keep them away.
I saw that on my timeline the other day. I was like, man, how are they taking away this? How are they taking that show away from us? They're comical, man.
Mm-hmm.
They really are.
Yeah, all-time greats.
I did want to stick with Isaiah Thomas. Our friend Corey Woods had the opportunity to talk to him, and I wanted to ask you a question about one part of the interview that I think a lot of fans listen to, and they're like, Isaiah's right. So he was disappointed with the new standard. Corey asked him a question of the effect of something like, if the Pistons win 25 games and they're close to being a play-in team, is that a successful season? And Zaya basically said, like, why is the bar so low? Why is the standard so low? I wanted to kind of get like your perspective on Isaiah's comments about, the Pistons. Pistons fans should be happy winning 25 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great, just commentary and great point of where the team is at right now and just, like where they've been over the years. And, just for Isaiah to be able to speak and say, to be one of the figureheads of bringing the standard of the franchise to where it is. And, like the Pistons are one of the 5-6 winningest organizations in the history of the league. Like they are one of the top 5-6 title teams in basketball. So, you don't get there by, not having that type of standard. And so I think, when you are like, it does say a lot that we are talking about, man, 24 wins would be a really good season, especially coming off of where you've been. And, I think that just, it's just one of those things where it just speaks to where they're at. But, you really can only incrementally go up from where they are. And I agree that the standard does need to be raised. And I think that's part of like, I think with the attitude change going forward is, as we've seen, it doesn't benefit them to just consistently try and lose games. Like we are at a point where winning has to be in the building and it has to be a part of every decision that they make, because especially with a lot of the talent that they have and, where they are, foundationally and, in their careers, age wise, where they're setting up to be, there's really not much more time for them to be in this basement, so to speak. Like, when you're talking about the Pistons, alongside teams like the Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards, like with all due respect to those franchises, that's just not where the Pistons should be. I mean, again, like you brought up, and I saw someone in the comments bring up, there were 2 different decades where the Pistons made the Eastern Conference Finals 5 times in a row. Like the standard has not just been playoffs. It has been being one of the teams to make the finals. It is being one of the final teams remaining, being one of the elite of the Eastern Conference is the Pistons standard. So when you do talk about just how far of a fall that is, he is 100% right. The thing that sucks is you can't flip a switch and turn it around overnight. I think they have the right people in place to head in that right direction. But I mean, like he said, I mean, the standard does have to raise across the board.
Yeah, it's I 100% agree with Isaiah because he mentioned like the standard was competing with the Lakers and the Boston Celtics, which I think, during his time, he laid the foundation for the organization to be talked in those conversations with 2 of the greatest teams in NBA history in the Celtics and the Lakers, who won the most championships. If you just look at the history, the Pistons were in that conversation. I mean, they
Yep.
disrupted Larry Bird and Magic Johnson during those eras. And even kind of like past the bad boys, you had the Grant Hill era. They were still winning. They weren't winning championships, but they were still making the playoffs. They were still winning.
Yep.
And you go to the going to work crew from 2002 to 2008, like 6 straight Eastern Conference finals. Like that was the standard. Now, obviously, Bill Davidson passed away. They sold the team in 2011. And it's just kind of been no identity, just kind of changing coaches, multiple regimes, multiple different plans, fighting for 8 seeds, getting bounced in the first round. I'm kind of with Isaiah. Like, we shouldn't look at 25 wins as like the bar or a success.
Mm-hmm.
I think a successful season, to his point, is to win more than 20 games. Like I think the bar needs to be set a little bit higher. And I think the diehard Pistons fans that have been through it, for 40 plus years, they understand that. And that's why they're so loud on Twitter. That's why they're so loud on social media. When we talk about the Pistons and we kind of praise them for like doing like stuff that they should probably already be doing anyways. 100% with Isaiah. And like, you could kind of hear the disappointment in his voice in that, like, just that question that Corey asked. And Corey did a phenomenal job with that interview. If you guys haven't watched it or listened to it, it should be on mlive.com still. Really good interview, about 30 minutes. Proud of Corey for not asking any Michael Jordan questions too.
I mean, there was still the LeBron comment in there, so Isaiah still found his way to make it a little about Michael. But hey, yeah, shout out to Corey on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree with Isaiah. Like, I think being a content creator, hosting a podcast, I try to sell positivity, but I can kind of get off the rails a little bit negative. But I agree with him. I think the bar has been set really low with this new regime, with everything basically. And obviously, I'll let the fans, have those conversations about Tom Gores. I'm not going to have those conversations because I never know who's watching. I'm just not. I'll let the fans have those conversations, but I mean,
yeah. What I'll say about Tom Gores is listen, I think Pistons fans are absolutely justified to feel the way that they feel. And, and the amount of losing that they have gone through over the last few years, like fans have more than every right to be upset and to feel the way that they feel. For me, when I look at, when I look at what an owner's job is and, how they're supposed to support their team to put them in a position to succeed, it's to make those investments both financially, but also, like personally into the organization, into the people, into winning basketball. And I think one thing you can certainly not say about Tom Gores is he's been cheap, especially compared to other owners. Now you could argue that he's had to burn a lot of money because of mistakes and because of, impulsive decisions that he has made in the past. And we've seen the growing pains, in full frontal display. But when you look at what you want an owner to be doing and, what you actually need an owner to be doing in order to be heading in the right direction, I think you have seen growth. I think there has been improvements. They haven't been in the win column yet, but nonetheless, like I think when you look at the organizational structure that they have today versus even 5, 6, 7 years ago, it is no longer about winning the headline or winning the press conference. It's about getting the right people in building the right, foundation and culture. And I think, listening to Tom Gores and, being there for the press conference, like for the Langdon presser, like I think there's certainly a better understanding of what that means today than when he took over. Now, like I'm not, you can't absolve, like anything that's happened, like, that is on his record and the record speaks for itself. But at the same light, when you look at what you want your owner to be doing, spending money, putting in the resources and, being competitive to put the right people in place, he has done that.
Yep. He has. It's just, I think it's, and this is a completely different podcast. I remember listening to it with Draymond Green when he had Isaiah Thomas on. He said when he fired Joe Dumars, he got rid of all that institutional knowledge that was in the building. And I
it still lives rent free in my head every time I think of where the Pistons are at, because like you got rid of a guy that won 2 championships and brought you one, and you haven't really replaced it. Like even Isaiah said, like when you think of the Pistons, you don't automatically think, oh, that guy's a Piston, like on the floor. Like he mentioned like Ben Wallace. He's just like Ben Wallace couldn't have played anywhere, but he could play in Detroit. And I think that's where he was trying to get. Like the Pistons have no identity right now. Their identity is identities from past teams that have been great and won championships. They have to find that new identity, and I'm hopeful Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff can create that culture and create a new identity for the Detroit Pistons that's more modern.
I mean, the thing that's crazy to think about is Trajan Langdon is the first dedicated president of basketball operations the Pistons have had since Joe Dumars. I mean, yes, they had Stan Van Gundy as their president, but he was also their head coach, which I think we saw very much throughout the league that just doesn't work. It was a very brief fad that we saw with Doc and with Stan Van. And just those are two different jobs that require full-time work for both of them, right? So, and even after that, they brought in Troy Weaver, but he was the general manager. He didn't necessarily have that full sway or say, right? So, the fact that that's even the first time they've had a defined president of basketball operations in a fully fledged out front office since they removed Joe Dumars. I think that just speaks to not understanding just how important that structure really was.
Yeah, I mean, when you have like former players that want to help out, like you see Richard Hamilton a ton around the Pistons organization.
Bumped into him while walking into the into the facility for the draft, by the way. One of the weirdest moments of my life.
I probably would have fangirled.
I literally was like, just was like, how's it going? I just had to very much just go like, the first thing that struck me was like, this is a tall person. Oh, that's Richard Hamilton. I was like, okay, we're good. But I mean, yeah, no, it was a weird moment, but yeah, no, it was like, yeah, that's a time.
Yeah, I mean, like if it was up to me, I'd have Rip as just like a consultant or something, like have like that knowledge in the building. Like you can't tell me he couldn't work with Jaden Ivey on his mid range. Like that would be amazing. Like just that, like having like former players that like want to be a part of the organization. Like I know they had Ben Wallace as a consultant. Don't really see Ben Wallace around anymore. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I know.
There.
I think he had an office at one point. He kind of was like, he was kind of a co-owner of like the Grand Rapids Drive when that was a thing. Not really sure what his role is fully, but yeah, I think to your point, like, like the Spurs, even though they have, like, we haven't seen like the full, like San Antonio standard, like since Tim Duncan and those guys have left, like those guys are still around and very much prominent and part of the organization. Right. And I think, you have, multiple guys, like obviously Chauncey's the head coach, Tayshawn's in a front office somewhere else. You have multiple guys from that roster who are more than capable and, have more than enough tutelage to be a part of, that culture. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a job on the roster, but, like you said, having guys that you can bring into the fold that, want to see you succeed, that, when you need to call on them and use them for moments like that, like, I think it is important for, to Detroit to, eventually lean in on that. So, I think to your point, it would be great to, to see someone, even if it's not one of like the going, even if it's not someone from that starting five, like someone from that team, just, around in some capacity would be cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, I know Lindsey Hunter's hosting Detroit radio show now, but I mean, like having someone like that, man, like I even see it with like Golden State, like Mike Dunleavy is in the front office now, and he's done like a really good job. Like the good organizations keep those players that help them along the way in the organization. They don't kind of push them out and say like, oh, if you could be a guest. Like Isaiah Thomas said, he's always welcome as a guest to any Pistons game. I'm sorry, like if I own the team and Isaiah wanted to come to a game, here's a key, man. You're welcome anytime. Like
the thing that's kind of weird with Isaiah is he's technically, like, I don't know if he has an official role or not with the organization, but he works very closely with Matt Ishbia with the Phoenix Suns. They're like very close friends. So I don't know if he's officially an advisor for them or not, but I know he's very involved in the front office makings of what's going on in Phoenix. So for him in particular, I think that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But to your point, like, especially like, as like a Lions fan, just for the years seeing like that weird stuff around the organization and Calvin, just like coming like, come on, like what's the barrier here? Like, what's the holdup? Like, I think to your point, it's like, there's something to be said about having that, those guys that have done it before and knows what it takes to be around those young players and to have that mentorship,
Yeah, Isaiah will always deny that he's not a part of Phoenix, but like
that's bullshit. Respectfully speaking, that is BS.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Ishbia, I don't even think he knows what a second apron is, but he's going to be paying it this year.
Oh, that man will pay whatever he has to, and you know what? If whatever floats his boat.
I mean, I know Pistons fans are hoping that it fails so Devin Booker comes to Detroit, but hey, it's a whole other conversation for another day.
Love me some Devin Booker, man.
Same here, man. Every time I see him in a Red Wings or a Detroit Tigers hat, I know Pistons fans are like, come on, Book, come home.
Grand Rapids native, Devin Booker.
Shout out. So this is a fun question. I know it's off season. So I want to know your honest opinion with this. What would help the Pistons more? Jalen Duren blocking 1.5 shots a game this season, or Jaden Ivey averaging 20 points a game?
Obviously, both would be huge. If I were to say, actually, I saw this on Twitter, I think the other day I think Kukuhila is the one who said it, and I fully agree with it. I think if the Pistons were to make a big jump this season, the biggest reason why would be Jalen Duren. And, it's because of what he can bring on that side of the court as a rim protector. His ceiling is Bam Adebayo. And I really feel that way. And, especially you look at when Detroit was playing well last year, those first few games before the losing streak really started to go downhill. It was when Jalen Duren was healthy, when he started the season and was playing really damn good basketball on both sides of the court. Like as a rim protector, he was like an immovable object. And then the ankle injuries started happening. He started getting in and out of the lineup. It felt like he couldn't get his rhythm back. It just kind of felt like he wasn't the same guy as when he started the season. But if Jalen Duren can be a consistent rim protector, that makes this team a lot more of a threat than they are right now. Although getting another, getting a Jaden Ivey getting 20 points a game would certainly help take this team to another level. That's not necessarily far off from where he already was. And I would say that you can still get a lot better offensively with some spread out shots and, just overall, distribution of those points. I don't think it all necessarily has to come from Jaden Ivey, but in my opinion, on the defensive side of the ball, how good this team is really does predicate on how good Jalen Duren is as a rim protector. And, especially you look at, with bringing in JB and his experience with Evan Mobley and with Jared Allen, I hope he could bring some, whatever those guys were sniffing pregame in to help Jalen Duren, because I mean, like the upside is certainly tangible. But I mean, there was a reason why they were talking about bringing in a Nicholas Claxton, why they were talking about bringing in an Isaiah Hartenstein. And it's because there were questions about whether or not he will reach that potential on that side of the ball.
Man, Isaiah Hartenstein and Claxton got paid. I'm worried, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking about this question because we have a group chat on the Bunches app. And if any of you guys are listening, free to join. Got over 500 people in there. And we were kind of debating, like, what would be more valuable, like a Jaden Ivey scoring 20 points a game, being more of an efficient scorer, or Jalen Duren blocking 1.5 shots a game. And I was with you. I was like, if Jalen Duren is blocking 1.5 shots a game, that tells me that the defense is much improved. And this is a team that maybe is winning more than 14 games in a season. And he's locked in, because I think last year, to your point, we saw certain games where we saw what the potential could be as a two-way center, where he was having those 20-20 games with a few blocks and here and there. I think he has all the tools to be a rim protector. It's just whether it was foul trouble last season, whether it was maybe being tired, injuring his ankles, ankle braces, everything, 30,000 foot view. I think if he blocked a shot and a half a game, this team is maybe kind of at that cusp of like, dare I say 30 wins in a season, because I think him helping on the interior, that means that this team's, better, like a lot better. Not to say that Jaden Ivey scoring 20 points a game wouldn't help this team. I think it would offensively, but I think having a legitimate rim protector at your starting setting position, I think would be more valuable for me personally.
Yeah. And I know with Jalen Duren, there's a lot of, things to be intrigued about on both sides of the ball. I know there's, footage of him, like shooting threes, or, there's the things that you see with his handle and his passing. And, there's just a lot of aspects of his game that if developed, he can be a really special player. But I honestly couldn't care about any less about any of it unless he becomes, an elite rim protector. Like there's something to be said about being a superstar in your role and being elite, at your specific, job. And, again, if Jalen Duren just becomes that, solid rim protector, the Bam Adebayo trajectory is not very far off for him. Not at all.
Not at all. He gets a mid-range jumper. He's basically Bam.
I mean, athleticism wise, he could be better than Bam. With all due respect to Bam, I don't think he's Duren as far as an athletic freak and specimen. I mean, Duren's only 20 years old and he looks like this.
Yeah, he can't even buy a drink yet legally. It's crazy because everyone was going nuts with the select stuff because he had like a post fade over Embiid during the select stuff, and because like Rashid said, like, yeah, he's got a mid-range game. He's like, the Pistons just won't let him, like, they won't unlock it. He's like, I could unlock it. Give me like 3 months with them. He's going to be shooting mid-range and threes. Like, I think the potential's there. I really do. I just think a lot of fans right now just have the question marks about the defense and the effort, which I do too. But I have to also remind myself, he's 20 years old, man. Like, I think sometimes we're thinking he's like 25, 26 years old, and he's only 20. So I guess
still cannot legally buy a drink yet.
Yeah.
He was born after LeBron James was drafted. Like that's how young this guy is. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw tools of him, protecting the rim at Memphis, and you saw it a little bit when he came off the bench his rookie year. It's just I don't know if it was a coaching change. I don't know if it was just an effort thing. I think we'll get to see this season if he brings the effort, he brings the energy defensively, because offensively, 13 points, almost shot 80% from the free throw line, which was, I think, kind of went under the radar. Not a lot of people talked about that, which is like really good for a center. But I thought this was a fun little question, this mental exercise.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, obviously the answer is you want both, right?
Yeah.
But like as much as, Jaden Ivey taking that next step scoring wise would certainly, make a big impact on this team. I don't really know if that side of the ball was necessarily their biggest struggle. Like, I think it's really just being able to get a stop and having that consistent anchor that you can rely on that back end.
For sure. I think he has all the tools to do it.
Without a doubt.
That's why I'm so high on him. We got one more little topic, and then we can wrap this podcast up because we've almost been on for an hour and a half.
Well, just like you said, a couple of sickos.
Yeah, man. Like I had Pistons Jacob, who's brand new into the Pistons YouTube content creation. It's so funny. I saw this kid, and I was just like, look at this kid. And then I look at the subscribers, and he told me, he's like, yeah, I started uploading in June, and I have like 2,000 subscribers. I was like, fuck me, kid. You know how long it took me to get 1,000 subscribers, and you did it in like 2 months? Like, shout out
it took
to you
me
for
like
that.
6+ months, man. It is not easy.
Now it's easy to grow. Everyone can grow on YouTube now because YouTube made it easier for smaller content creators.
YouTube Shorts really helps a lot, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the last question I have is, do you think this team realistically can make the play-in tournament?
Oh man. I mean, I think there's a realistic chance that they can be in that conversation. But when you look at the conference as a whole, the thing that's scary is, even though the Pistons got better, I think a lot of teams are looking at themselves and saying, we got better too. Like I think when you look at what teams, most obviously take a step back in the conference this year, I think Toronto is clearly going to be one of the bottom teams. Their win total was really only as high as it was because of the beginning of the season. And then the rest of the season happened. I think now that you're going to have a full year of tanking, they're certainly going to be in that conversation. Brooklyn, I think, is going to be the worst team in the league. But other than that, I mean, maybe Atlanta is in that conversation as well. But otherwise, like the rest of the conference, like Indiana certainly just established themselves as a conference power. Orlando, I don't think is going anywhere by any stretch of the imagination. The Washington Wizards will certainly be down there for sure in the conversation, but otherwise, like I think you're still like I don't think the balance of power has shifted a ton. I think if the Pistons are in that discussion, I certainly think it's a victory. I'm not. If you were to ask me for a percent chance, I'd say like 30 to 35% chance. But like, hey, the fact that that's even a conversation with the roster moves that they made. I mean, that's good. We'll see if they, they're actually in it. I think the important thing for the, a big victory for the Pistons would be that actually being a conversation beyond November, because that was all but gone before, 2024 even hit this last year. Like no one was even thinking about Detroit in the play-in. Like it wasn't even nearly a conversation. So
no, it's the first 3 games of the season, I thought we were back.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Blazer game happened.
There was that one post where I think the Bleacher Report said like the Showtime Pistons or something like that.
We went from Showtime to Wingstop Pistons in like a matter of a month. Like
yeah,
it's pretty crazy. I'm still struggling with this. I think the bottom of the East is pretty weak. I think Charlotte will be there.
Yep.
Atlanta's interesting to me because I don't know what they're gonna do. It's like, are they just retooling, or are they just gonna bite the bullet and trade Trae Young and just start over?
I think if they could have traded Trae Young, I think they would have done it by now.
That's fair.
I think I truly think that, like, not that he doesn't have value, but I think especially for like his money, like if you're coming into Trae, if you're bringing Trae Young in, are you confident he'll be your second or third option and that he'll take that gladly?
Yeah, I think the only team he makes sense on, and I said it last week, is Orlando, because they don't really have a point guard that can score.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the only team I think that could, like, where he fits with his defensive deficiencies, because they have KCP, they have multiple defenders that can switch and kind of hide him. But I mean, I don't see Orlando like being desperate enough. And it sounds like,
because honestly, if you're Orlando, I'd say, well, is Jalen Suggs really not that much worse than him right now? And I mean, honestly, Jalen Suggs has gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. I'd almost rather see where he can go, and he's definitely better defensively than Trae Young.
Yeah, I mean, they have Anthony Black too, who's a really good defender.
I like Anthony Black a lot.
Me too. I was a really big fan of his coming out of college. But I mean, Atlanta is probably cusp playing. You got Charlotte. I don't see Washington even being in competition for.
Oh, they're going to be so bad. They are going to be so bad.
Yeah, December 15th, I feel like we're going to get probably like 5 Woj notifications if they traded half their bigs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, signing Jonas and saying, yeah, we'll trade you December 15th, but don't worry. Like, that's such a... I know Troy Weaver's not the general manager, but he's a consultant. It just kind of seems like a Troy move.
Do you think Troy like made it a non-negotiable that they draft Alex Sarr for him to come in, or do you think he would have? What do you think he would have done if they didn't draft Alex Sarr? Because that man loves his bigs.
He does. Pause.
Well, I wasn't bringing it there, but I mean, hey.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like, they have like Rashawn Holmes, Marvin Bagley, now Alex Sarr, that he said he didn't want to play center. He wanted to play power forward. They have enough bigs now where he can play power forward. I don't know if he's going to change his jersey number again, but I mean, like, his summer league was atrocious, man.
Oh,
like,
it was so bad.
If you went on Twitter, it was like people were calling him the 7-foot Killian Hayes. Like, I was like, wow, you guys are wild. Because I was pretty high on Alex Sarr coming out of the draft. I really liked him, but I mean, I don't know, man. For the Troy question, I have no idea like how much say he has.
in that organization. I thought they might go Ricochet, but hey, it's crazy.
I'm interested to see. I don't even think, and like another thing, that just speaks to where this draft was. I don't think Zachary Ricochet will have an impact on if the Hawks will make the playoffs or not. Like, I genuinely think he'll be a non-factor for them. He'll be a role player. The number one pick was a role player.
I mean, Reed Shepherd looks like arguably like the best player in the draft so far, just based off the summer league.
He looked incredible, man. I knew he was a really solid shooting guard. I knew he could do a lot, from beyond the arc, but what he showed as a point guard and his ability to run an offense and, have the ball in his hands on the Houston Rockets, I'm feeling pretty excited about what I have coming up this year.
Yeah, I mean, Houston has so much young talent, but
yep.
I don't know. It's such a hard question. I know you said 30% for the play-in. I'm like in between the 24 and 27 games range.
Yep.
If they prove me wrong, because I think you're going to have to win at least 30 plus to make the play-in, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they trade one of the, the young core pieces for another proven vet, like I find it really hard to believe, but they could be in a position at the deadline, because these aren't Trajan's guys. I mean, he could, bite the bullet on someone. You never know.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think the first part of this season is going to be, him really evaluating, who he thinks fits together and, what they'll do going forward. I certainly think within the next year, someone's going to be moved.
Yeah. I mean, we had conversations that we think it's going to be Marcus Sasser last week, because it's like, you look at the depth chart, there's like really no pathway unless you really believe he's a backup point guard.
I was not sold by Marcus Sasser at all from Summer League. Not to read too much into Summer League, but I was not impressed. I like Marcus Sasser was a guy I wanted to go in and really show, any improvements he's made, or what a year in the league has really done for him. I don't think he really did that.
I feel like the Pistons just wanted him to try out being a point guard and seeing if maybe that's a pathway that he could possibly back up Cade, where I view him more as like an undersized shooting guard, just a guy that can get buckets and score. But I mean, you look at the depth chart, like I don't really see playing time for him. And like
I don't either.
And you just drafted him like last year, and it's like, I don't know, man. Like, does he have a market? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean the nice excuse of a new regime is you can just go, well, he's not my guy. I didn't draft him.
Yeah, it's because, like, let's say you want to play him at shooting guard. So you have Jaden Ivey, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Malik Beasley.
Yeah, there's just not a path there.
He's still going to get playing time. I still think he'll get 10 minutes a night.
You could maybe have lineups like you talk about Cade playing the 3. Like you could maybe have lineups where you have Sasser, at the 2 or at the 1, with Ivy, there as well. But like, just at a certain point, you're, like it's putting together rotations for a guy that you just don't really know if he's even one of the best 12 or 13 guys on the roster. Just like from what he's shown, like and especially the amount of guard depth that, they brought in, especially veteran guards. Like it's like you said, like the pathway to minutes for a guy like him just got infinitely harder.
Okay. I want to know what, PD, did we make a trade or something? Because you're putting the eyeball emoji. You're going to make me check my phone. Did something happen?
No.
Nothing happened. The only thing I got on my phone is Kuka Hill wants to connect on LinkedIn. That's all I got right now.
But shout out to Koo, man.
The only thing I saw NBA news wise today was the player who was really big for France, Gershon Yabusele. He actually just got a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
French Ben Wallace, as they're calling him.
But no, I mean, when that's the biggest NBA news of the day, that tells you where we're at in the NBA calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have some Sixer followers. They were pretty hyped with him. I think the most people remember about him is dunking on LeBron during the Olympics.
Yep.
But hey,
listen, the odds of him even making the rotation are very low. But he more than earned an opportunity after his play in the Olympics. He played really good basketball.
Yeah, I mean, he really did. I'm honestly like, I thought Evan Fournier was just gonna F the US because he was just like playing out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
This Olympics, it's something about the Olympics and these like international guys like Patty Mills and freaking Evan Fournier just go berserk for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's something about those FIBA rule sets, man. Evan Fournier just turns into Klay Thompson.
Man.
On that note,
oh man, he was getting cooked by Carmelo's kid.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, man. Poor Klay, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we've been on for almost 2 hours, which I appreciate you making the time to come
Absolutely,
on for 2
man.
hours.
Thanks for having me.
I want to give you the floor to plug yourself, plug your Twitter, plug your YouTube channel, whatever you're working on, because I know you're a busy guy with content creation and basketball season coming up.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Yeah, if you want more Pistons and NBA content as a whole, you can head over to From Half Court, my YouTube channel. We have a podcast that comes out every week, and then also any updates on Pistons and just basketball as a whole. My Twitter's at Sean Half Court. We'll post any updates and stuff there as well. So yeah, man, gearing up for a really busy season. Really excited for it. And dude, thanks again for having me on. Gonna have to have you back on the pod here soon.
Yeah, I mean, I've had Jeff on here twice. And like Jeff is just so burnt out. Like when I had him on, man, like I felt so bad when I had him on because he invited me onto his show, and he's like, "Man, your followers don't like me." And like I was reading the comments, man, there were people in this chat were roasting Jeff because he said Monty was a good coach, and he's like, "Bro, like they think I don't know ball." I was like, "Well, you said Monty was a good coach, man." Like,
I mean, Monty won Coach of the Year at one point. He brought a team to the finals. Honestly, even though I could fully agree that Monty had one of the worst coaching jobs of all time this last season, I still just find it incredibly puzzling. Even though I have a decent sense of what happened, I still wonder what happened. You know what I mean?
yeah, I don't know, man. It was kind of funny because I got to cover Monty's son because he played a Brother Rice on their basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And like I knew Monty was gone this summer, but I couldn't say shit because one of my buddies works at Brother Rice in the athletic department. And I said, is Monty's kid like showing up to any of these practices? He's like, dude, we haven't seen him since like April. They're gone. They're in Cali. I was like, oh. He's like, yeah. He's like, Monty's probably getting fired. I was like, oh shit. And this is like, May. I was like, he's like, you can't say anything though. He's like, he's probably gonna get fired. I was like, damn, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes you probably get told like stuff that you can't repeat, like until after the fact. It's so crazy.
Yeah, man. I mean, the basketball world is a very active, crazy one with a lot of twists and turns and stuff that happens, that like you just can never even begin to account for. But I mean, I think one of the things that, people just don't realize is basketball is very much a people business,
Okay. Ben said this is why he's got beef with Jeff. And we're going to take a screenshot of this. Jeff said Jabari Smith Jr. was more skilled than Paolo during the draft. I'll never let that slide.
Hey, in fairness to Jeff, that was a pretty popular take pre-draft. Like let's not remember, let's not forget, Jabari Smith was seen as the consensus number one pick, right? Like Paolo, he didn't necessarily blow anyone away at Duke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Looking back, Paolo was obviously the right pick at number one. And I think, Orlando obviously is counting their lucky stars that they ended up with Paolo, but let's not pretend that was like a crazy take or that he was the only person saying that, because that was a pretty popular take.
Yeah. I mean, I had Jabari Smith really high on my board, if I'm being honest. I had Chat and Paolo too. Like I thought Chat was going one and I was shocked when he didn't. I was like, oh, okay, that was like a wild draft, but
not to be that guy, but I had him third around that time. But I'll also say I'm not going to claim Paolo was not my number one guy. Anyone remembers I was a very big Chet Holmgren guy. There were two names. Yeah. There were two names. I don't know if you remember, but there were two names I was championing that summer. I was championing in the draft. I was championing Chet Holmgren, and in free agency, I was raving about Jalen Brunson. I'm feeling pretty good about those takes.
Yeah, the Jalen Brunson stuff. I remember me and Leo.
I was getting killed for that, by the way. Killed for that.
Oh, me and Leo were giving you I still remember it. You're like, yeah, I'm thinking 20 million. Leo's like, I'm thinking like 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you're looking at 20 million and you're like, man, that would have been the best contract in the league.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Brunson and Cade would have been electric.
Yeah. Yeah. Meh. What do I know? I'm just some idiot.
Hey, man. And I was at Woodward Sports, and like in the summer, no one showed up to it's like a Woodward Sports thing. If you guys like actually watch their stuff, in the summer, like half that talent down there doesn't show up. They just golf all summer. And I went on a show with Tom Masway, Adam Baydoun, and we're talking Pistons. And Adam wanted to trade Jeremy Grant. I was like, you trade Jeremy Grant, you probably win 20 games if you're lucky. He's like, I don't care. Jeremy Grant's ruining this team. What do they do? Win 20 games. It's just like, man.
Yeah, I love Adam. His Jeremy Grant take was one of his worst, and it was not close.
Yeah, I mean, I still have those Adam takes with Jeremy Grant. I mean, they're all timers.
They are. They really are.
But man, appreciate all. Got 400 people on a Sunday night at 9:00. You guys are the best.
Man, there's 400 people watching this right now. Y'all are sickos. I love that.
Between Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, yeah, we got 440 in here. Got 5
that's
likes on
awesome,
Facebook.
man.
That's crazy, man. I love it. I love that Pistons fans are so diehard. And can we get Adam on here? No, we can't get Adam on here, Ben. Unfortunately, he's going through some stuff right now that I'm not going to say because it's none of my business. But he can't do any live streams or sports shows. But appreciate you guys, tapping on in on a Sunday for over 2 hours. Appreciate Sean coming on. If you guys want to follow Sean, got his Twitter and his YouTube down in the description below. You can just click the link and subscribe and follow him on Twitter. Appreciate you as always, man.
Hey,
Peace, you guys.
Thanks for having me, man.